What if the moment you realized you were winning was also the moment you saw what it was costing you? In this conversation, serial entrepreneur and founder of Gathering the Kings, Chaz Wolfe, opens up about the identity shifts, turning points, and wake-up calls that reshaped how he defines success in business, in family, and in faith. This is the Your Next Success podcast, and I'm your host, Dr. Carolyn Sangal. I am a life-first career coach and strategist on a mission to normalize questioning your career, because I believe each of us is made on purpose for a purpose only we can fulfill. The longer we live out of alignment with who we are, what we do best, and why we are here, the more we miss out, and the more the world misses out on what only we can give. The Your Next Success podcast is where we explore how to build a career that truly fuels your life. We talk about self-discovery, smart job search strategies, professional growth, and you will hear stories from people who have navigated big career transitions themselves so you can create a life-first career and become your own version of authentic success. Today's guest is Chaz Wolfe, a high-performing serial entrepreneur on a mission to help business owners win in all areas of life. Chaz has built, purchased, and sold multiple seven-figure ventures in franchising, home service, real estate, and consulting. He's an operations and process maximizer, an award-winning sales mind, and the creator of Gathering the Kings, a mastermind community for established entrepreneurs. He is willing to talk about the cost of chasing growth, the tension between work and family, and what it really means to be grateful but not done. We trace his journey from a 12-year-old taking on adult responsibilities to a young man buying multiple franchises in his 20s to a husband and father realizing that growth without grounding wasn't the story he actually wanted to live. We talk about predictable turning points in life and career, the power of autonomy, why some of us are wired to always want the next level, and how to hold that ambition and be deeply present to your faith, your family, and your health. In this conversation, we go beneath the business metrics into identity, autonomy, faith, and how to build a life that actually holds the success you're creating. Let's dive into the conversation with Chaz Wolfe. Oh, Chaz Wolfe, welcome to Your Next Success.
Of course. Thanks for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So one of the things I'm trying to help people understand is to, be who they are, be that well, and keep improving.
Yeah.
We're going to get to how you have sold multiple seven-figure businesses, really impact lives of many, many others and entrepreneurs through this beautiful mastermind concept and allowing your success to multiply even more with and through others. We'll get to that. I'd love to dial it way, way back. Can you help us understand, where did you grow up? What was life for really young Chaz like?
I think like most kids, we just know what we know, and so I didn't necessarily know that I didn't have what I didn't have. And so looking back now, I can look back and go, well, we didn't have a lot of, we didn't have a lot of money. We didn't have a lot of peace because we didn't have a lot of money. I didn't have a dad. And so the circumstances were of a lot of hustle, a lot of grind, a lot of push, and my mom working constantly, but always showing up with just a positive attitude and a get it done environment. And so that produced a very grown up Chaz at a young age. I've said on other shows where I was a grown man at the age of 12. I'm working, making money, buying my own stuff, making my own decisions. Joke about with some, whether it's friends or other people that have kids now that are, turning 15, 16 and they're buying cars and stuff like that. Like there was no chance my mom was buying me a car. And so in order to get a car, I had to actually go get a loan from a bank for $1,500. My grandma co-signed. And that was like true autonomy. I was happy to do it because I knew that my mom could never say, give me your keys, because they weren't hers. They were mine. They were my keys. It was my insurance. It was my gas. And I was working my butt off just to put the little bits of gas that I could in the tank to go back and forth from school to my couple of hours a week part-time job at Sonic at that time. but it was complete autonomy. And now knowing personalities, we use the predictive index for all of our hiring and all of our team building efforts inside of my own companies, but as well as our clients. I know now that is just one of the things that is just super important to a profile like mine is autonomy, being able to make decisions, being able to, and even if I have to carry the weight, right? So even at 12, 13, 15, 16, I'm carrying the weight that most teenagers shouldn't have had to, but I did willingly because I was happy. It gave me the autonomy that I truly wanted. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of a backdrop. I'm ambitious. I want more out of life. I love your projection to your audience of being able to stir the pot or ask questions or being able to pivot. I think that's why corporate America didn't work for me for very long, because I asked too many questions. I wanted too much autonomy. I'm too much of a posture. And so maybe we can get into some of that here today.
Absolutely. And where you grew up, like, was it Kansas City area? I know that's where you are.
Yeah, a couple hours east of here, middle of
Okay.
Missouri. And so, yeah,
So more rural-ish?
it was a town of 100,000. So no, not necessarily rural, but but not a big city.
Yeah. And you've mentioned a lot of times, like, you've learned a lot of your grit, your resilience, all these things from your mom, just constantly kept trying her best, doing her best. What was her type of work that she did? Was there a particular theme to it?
Yeah, she spent a lot of time in real estate and property management. So property management was probably the key factor there. She was a real estate agent for a short period of time. I don't know, maybe half decade or maybe a decade or something like that. But she worked inside of an organization that built homes, sold them, managed properties, and so she wore a lot of hats inside that organization and others like it. But she's done a ton. I mean, she's been an executive assistant for a Fortune 500 company. She's been a CEO. She's been, a sales support staff. I mean, she has learned many skills over the course of time, simply out of need, survival, willpower, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Absolutely. And yet that also, because see, to me, I figure careers are like an iceberg. And typically what people focus on is the things above the surface, the title, the salary, the location. And what's actually driving success and fulfillment is all those layers underneath the surface. So while things like predictive index, DISC, these kind of things, they're going to tell you about your observable behaviors, and that's cool. But just like as parents to children, we realize sometimes the observable behavior is actually has an underpinning of some other unmet need.
Sure.
Of part of how they're wired or how they are, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, let me check the observable behaviors and things, and let me dig deeper into finding out what is the root, what is the soil, how do things come. And so that can be influenced by many different areas. Your family you come from and the family you have now both are huge into that, because in a lot of ways it shapes our idea. Our family we come from shapes our idea about, like, how do things work in the world, our first views, what's even possible, what kind of careers are out there, right? What kind of a work ethic might I have, should I have, because that's who we are, right? And so I think that's fascinating. And all the studying I tried to do ahead of this, I got that your mom had many different jobs, but I didn't realize. And you talked about, like, being on construction sites and stuff, and I'm like, okay, I see it a little bit more now. And that does seem like some of those influences absolutely shaped not just how you show up at work, but some of the things that you've had an opportunity to explore more.
For sure.
And you had an early
For sure.
So
and to your point, I think that regardless of the specific jobs that she's held, what I've been able to glean is even though I may not be totally skilled in this thing yet, I can jump in. I can take the skills that I do have, I can apply them, I can ask a lot of questions, I can learn a new skill, and I don't need to be fearful of that, although it may be hard or challenging. I've watched her reinvent herself many times. So I think that part of building a career, building businesses for myself, is it's not just you becoming a new identity, yes, but reinventing yourself professionally, I think, is kind of part of the game.
Absolutely. Now, what was it at 12 that kind of helped a lot of stuff kind of shift? I've heard this age of 12 a few different times, as far as, like, you're saying that you were kind of working and getting things done.
Yeah.
And another part, it was like, I think around 12, you started going to church and started realizing and recognizing even more of the beautiful world that we live in.
Yeah.
But why 12 of all the times?
Yeah. I think that it's funny now because my oldest just turned 12 and I'm watching her grow, develop, change right before my eyes. And as a 12-year-old, even the last couple months as an 11-year-old, she's a different person than she was just 6 months ago. And all of the kids each 6 months look completely different, but there's been this dramatic change from kid to teenager, really, or young adult. She's looking at things differently. She's experiencing, obviously changes in her body and hormones, stuff like that. But the way that she thinks and the way that she goes after things is different than just a year ago. And so I would probably say it was similar, just that time frame of I started to work, I started to understand that like, ooh, I can is cause and effect, right? Like if I do this and I earn this, then I then have these choices. And I think you're
Yeah.
old enough to, like start putting your body to some physical labor, to some actual things. She's starting to babysit. We bought them, they borrowed some money from me, my two daughters, and bought a vending machine business in the last 2 months. And so they're
Nice.
physically working their business. And they're starting to kind of correlate between like, okay, if I do these things, I get this result, AKA money. And then with that money, then I have choices, autonomy,
Yeah.
freedom potentially. And that was what it was for me. Cause it's not that I didn't like my scenario. I mean, I had a super close relationship with my mom growing up. So it wasn't like I was trying to get out of the scenario, but knowing myself, like I wanted to be the lead. I didn't want someone else making choices for me. And so that was probably the first time in my life where I was able to go, you know what, actually, if I do this, I get this result and then I have control, right?
Yes, yes, absolutely. Okay, and so school-wise or activity-wise, what were the types of things that fascinated you?
Yeah, I played basketball all during that time, competitively all the way through high school and then a little bit of college. But there's a kind of a funny piece to that is I'm 17 years old. I'm in the middle of my junior year of high school. I've played basketball for, most of my life at this point. It has been a good chunk of my focus. And I'm halfway through my junior year and I kind of have this revelation that, okay, I'm an okay player. I'll probably go D2, get some looks at a D2 offer, go to college, have it paid for via a scholarship or mostly through a scholarship. And then what? And I could see the end of where basketball took me. And I'm 17 and I go, well, that doesn't actually make any sense. It seems like I would spend the next, 4 to 7 years on this thing, a lot of effort, a lot of time, a lot of input for what? Just to be able to get a free college education. I wasn't super sold on college anyway. I wasn't sold on school to begin with. We can talk about that here in a second. But I literally, middle of the season, I fold up my jersey and I walk in and I hand it to the coach. And I say, hey, I'm done. And he's like, wait a second. I'm like, no, I don't try to persuade me otherwise. I've already made my decision. Basically, basketball is only going to take me so far, and I am going to just jump to the end of the story and start working now. I'd rather make money now than spend time and effort on basketball now. And he was just like flabbergasted that the 17-year-old kid was just making this type of decision. And so that's what it was. I did play a little bit in college. I went to a college that, was kind of a small Christian school. I went to for just one semester. I'm, shooting around with the guys and they're like, hey, you're playing, right? I'm like, I didn't come here for that. They were like, no, you should play. Like a lot of guys came here specifically to play, but you're good enough. You should play. So I ended up playing for that first semester. But just as a taste, it was just like, it was drawing me back, love of the sport. But I knew it wasn't what I was, meant to do.
I love that. Because one of the things I was mentioning before we were really into this recording phase is I've learned that questioning your career happens at predictable stages. And you hit that first one and you didn't override it. So I love that because, that first phase, which could be between 15 to 18, and you're starting to question, like, is this really it? And I really am trying to help people design, like, what is the life you want? Yeah. And how can your career fuel that life?
Right.
How can the things you invest your time, effort, and energy in provide the vision of the life that you're looking for? And you recognized it then. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And you can have many, many people who have your best interests at heart from the data that they have in their perspective of what it would be like for you to be you. And you know what it's like for you to be you. And you saw that, you recognized the disconnect, you course corrected, and you ultimately followed your true calling, if you will, right? Like you did not care what the world said.
you cared what you wanted and overrode those things and helped, others. I think that's fascinating. And you still can have this love, right? And then realization as we grow that there's some things that we can enjoy doing and they don't have to be our profession. They can be our hobby. They can be a fun,
Exactly.
Something fun and enriching to our life. So I love that as well. Okay. So you leave college and you then decide to pour yourself into even more working. What do you go into doing and how did you get that next level opportunity?
Yeah. And so I left college again, similar reason there. I just kind of had this like, what am I doing moment here? And not that I was in the wrong place necessarily, but due to external circumstances that had to do with my mom and financially the family just in a specific position, I felt duty to leave school and to come back and to be a part of the solution for our family. And so I did that for a short period of time financially. And really what that did is it gave me the opportunity to be back in town with my girlfriend at that time, who I wanted to ask to marry me, who I eventually did. We've been married now for almost 18 years. And so it gave me a chance to help the family, be back with my girlfriend, and then start working and really just kind of get after this ambition that was in my heart. And for me, because I went to a Christian school, I was going to become a youth minister, and I had kind of like, the only father figure I had was my youth minister. And so just naturally, I think what a lot of firstborns do is they kind of follow after their father, And I think if I would have known my dad, which I know him now, he didn't know existed. I thought somebody else was my dad. And so if I had known him growing up, I would probably be a veterinarian and a farmer because that's what he is, or a cattleman. And so I think that there's a lot to say with me at that time. I was following my quote unquote, father figure at that time, going to school to be a youth minister. And even my wife at that time as a girlfriend, she was like, "Are you sure this is what you're supposed to do?" Because she could see the ambition and the skills and the leadership in me even at that time, and was kind of like, "Huh? I mean, not that you can't use those things in youth ministry, but I don't like the puzzle pieces aren't fitting, to me." And so during that recognition of like, okay, I'm going to come back, help my family, help my mom, be closer to my girlfriend, start working. It really just gave me like a new slate of going like, okay, done with the ministry thing. I walked away from that. What am I actually designed for? And I think that I leaned into some sales stuff that I had started. I had started working at Foot Locker as a kid. I'd done very, very well in retail sales, become a manager at a young age. And so when I left, I started some other sales positions, got myself into some phone sales where I was earning more than all of my college buddies, even when they came out of college, more than anybody in my family ever had. And it was just based on my work ethic, my ambition, my willingness to serve our customers, and so that's where it led me after school. Is I was on a hunt for success, I guess, financially, probably.
And our definitions change over time. And so how did you get those successive sales opportunities?
Yeah, I'm 21, kind of fast forward a little bit. I'm 21. We just got married. We moved to Kansas City. I've got a buddy that works over at this call center. They're selling advertising and they're making 150 to 250 calls a day. Environments like that, kind of thrive on 21, 22, 25, 28-year-old men and women, but a lot of dudes, especially guys like me that don't have a college education. The promise of making 50, 60, 70K at that time was like, really? That's more than anybody in my family's ever made, And so for me to come in at 21, I almost made 60 grand that year. 22, I made over 100 grand. 23, I made 150. 24, I leave my corporate job to buy my first business. And so I kind of escalated quickly once I had, again, choices or options.
Yeah.
And that was stemmed from the money that I was earning.
How did you choose that franchise? Out of all of the ones, like what were the deciding factors? Because come to learn it was edible arrangements and you don't necessarily prefer fruit. So help me understand.
Yeah.
Help me understand that.
Yeah, I think that there's kind of two different types of entrepreneurs. The one that needs to like love the daily tasks, to love the widget, if you will. And I have a buddy like this. We had looked at buying a business together, and it was a carpet cleaning franchise. And he was like, "Man, I just can't see myself cleaning carpets." And I was like, "Huh, that's interesting. I never thought about that." Okay. I never thought about what it would be like to clean carpets. I was willing to clean carpets or toilets or make fruit baskets, or it like the widget or the product didn't matter to me. I like the game of business. I like to win. And so I was just playing a different game. And that doesn't mean that my game was wrong or his game was wrong.
No,
It just means,
different.
it was the preference of going, hey, I want to like, he wanted to be in the daily thing every day and love it. And I wanted to be in the daily thing from a business perspective and love it. I already knew I was going to love the game. So.
Yeah, and love the results from what that thing provided for you.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
So to answer your question, how I got into it, I looked at businesses for almost 2 years, about 18 months. I looked at everything under the sun: franchise, non-franchise, service, not service, retail, dry cleaners, furniture. I mean, you name it. And then I just landed on this brand where I felt like, given my kind of sales background, my team building background with corporate and being successful as a leader, that I could grow with those skills inside of this brand.
That's awesome. Okay, and then how did that lead to other opportunities for you? Because you've really done an amazing job of leveraging what you've had, the skills you've learned to get to a certain point, and then you keep leveling and leveling and leveling. Yeah.
Well, I think the answer underneath all of that is I just never stopped. I just kept adding things to the plate intentionally or even subconsciously. And so to answer your question, I get that first location. There's another location, 10, 15 minutes down the road. I get introduced to her. She's, basically retirement age, but she says she doesn't want to sell yet. But even me asking those types of questions, like, where did that come from? I wanted more. Like, I just bought the first business. People are like, you just got your first, $400 something thousand SBA loan. Like, dude, this is wild at 24, 25 years old. And I'm talking about trying to do it again down the road. And so I ended up convincing her to sell, and I bought that one 6 months later, which is pretty abnormal. Typically, banks don't do back-to-back SBA loans like that. You have to be in business for a year or two. But I had a good history. I had a good business plan. I had a pleasing personality. I don't know, like all of the components that allowed them faith that I could do this. And then a year later, I built a brand new one, and a year later, I built a brand new one in a different city, 3 hours away. And then a year later, I built 2 brand new ones in 2 different cities and bought a third one in a completely different state all at the same time. And so that took me from 4 to 7 in about 4 years, about 70 employees or so. And I look back on that and I'm just like, whoa. But it was all driven by like, what's next? Like, check, got the one. Yeah. Now what's next? Yeah. What's next? And I've since defined that inside of our mastermind community as grateful, but not done. And if you've done research on me, then you've definitely heard me say that, because there's this mental position that especially entrepreneurs like me get into, where we're always just hungry for the next thing. And we don't necessarily know how to be present in the moment and be grateful for what has happened, good, bad, indifferent, whatever. And I think it has to be both. My ambition for the next thing isn't the problem. That's just how God made me. Like, I'm always going to want the next thing. That doesn't make me discontent, or it doesn't make me not grateful for what I have, or not happy about my current life. It's just the way I'm designed. And so I think that the answer for people like me is to be able to embrace that ambition and know that I'm playing the ultimate game of what's the next level? And I'm constantly obsessed with that. And now I know that it's for every area of my life, not just business. But for me to also be able to sit in a position and go, wow, I've come a long way. And Carolyn over here is taking me through the history of like, how did you do this? And how did you do this? And go, you know what? Wow, I had some really cool people help me along the way. And yeah, I made some hard choices. And there were some sneaky moments in the middle there where I lost some money and like, I was a little bit nervous. And man, I've kind of come a long way. This is kind of cool. But there's so much more, to get done.
Yeah.
So.
When did you first read Think and Grow Rich?
I'm 19 years old. I'm like fumbling through the book. I don't even know if I finish it, because I'm like, what is this? I don't even know how to read this. I don't understand it. I put it down. I move on to the next self-help book. And I don't know exactly when I came back to it. It was maybe a year or two later. I'm probably 21-ish, 22 maybe. I can't remember exactly, but early. But I had no idea what it was. I had no idea what it said. Since then, I don't know. Maybe I've read it 100 times, like no exaggeration. Maybe 150.
Yeah.
Imagine what your life would be like if your career aligned with who you are, what you do best, and actually fueled the life you want. At Next Success, We support all ages and stages through career transitions, from students exploring majors or careers to job seekers actively searching or reimagining their next move to professionals committed to self-awareness and leadership growth. Stay connected and explore what's possible at nextsuccesscareers.com and follow Next Success Method on LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook.
And each time, it's kind of almost like the Bible, but it's not the Bible, right? Like, so completely
Totally.
different categories, but both books that are like ever
Just
living,
keep reading. Yep.
ever helpful, and just, regardless of the time or space, you can find a great nugget.
Oh, yeah.
To,
Well, because we're developing, right? We're changing, right? To your point, we're always,
absolutely.
Whatever stage that we're in our career or in our families. And so very similar, like you said, to the Bible, it's reflective, right? The person that I am today can read it today, and it can get something different from the person that I'm going to be in 6 months or in 6 years,
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you got all these franchise, and then at what point, like, did your family expand while you had these, growing from 1 to 7 franchise in 4 years, or were kids not quite in the picture yet?
Yeah, no, it was all at the same time, just kind of wild. So my firstborn, we have had all home births. And so I remember my firstborn, we're at home, she's born, the midwife and the doula leave. Like they leave at like 3 a.m. after the birth, and they get us all situated. We're in the bed, the three of us, and I'm already like in new dad shock of like, who is this? Where did you come from? You don't look like me. Who are you? Like just weird dad vibes that we all get, if we're honest about we're just too logical. Mom's totally just like in love and glad that it's all over.
Yeah.
And we're just like, oh wow, they're leaving. They're leaving us here with this. They're like, oh no. It was the next morning at 10 a.m. that I get up and I'm delivering equipment for that first brand new location that I told you I was building. As my third location. And so 2.5 years later is when our second was born. And so that was in the process of building 5, 6, and 7. And so we went, during 0 to 7 locations of that franchise, we went 0 to 2 kids. Our third was born shortly after that. So yeah, kind of a wild ride, expanding in all areas. In fact, I joked with the franchise development lady that I was going to have to keep up with the kids. I was going to have more kids that I could name the new location, like legal names after the kids. And she just like, you're crazy, Chaz. I was like, I know, I am.
How did that pivot or adjust your vision of what you thought you wanted for the future by welcoming these kids into the world? What was the effect of that?
I wish, like now, I can say my perspective of family and kids is just so different. And I don't know exactly when that changed, but early on, I think that, that was a 26-year-old Chaz, 28-year-old Chaz. And I don't think I fully grasped what fatherhood was. And maybe it's because I didn't have one. Maybe because I didn't have that modeled for me, but I didn't fully grasp it at that time. I was still very much building businesses, and I was available, and I loved my children and of course my wife, but I was not there, like really. I wasn't all in. I thought I was, but looking back, I wasn't. And probably till I was, I don't know, maybe even 32, 33, where I've got like kids that can engage with me. And I think this happens with dads in general, is just like the older that they get, the more active they become, and I can become more engaged with them. When they're babies, it's tough. The screaming sound of a baby, they've done studies on this where like what it does to the inside of a man versus the inside of a woman. Like I'm like tense and I want to run, and a woman's like, Julie's like, oh my gosh, sweet thing, please come here, and all nurturing. And so even from like that, it's just like, kind of like, I'll just go build businesses, It wasn't really until, 6, 7 years ago, 5, 6, 7 years ago, where I started going like, I should probably look at this different, So I'm kind of maybe a little sad to say that, but that's the truth.
That's reality. I mean, I was successful in a couple different chapters. One is a PhD research scientist making, of all things, structural adhesives to bond metal car parts together, fatigue and fracture. What? And I did it. I did it well, right? I studied how cracks initiated and grew, not because I wanted to break them, but because I wanted to make them stronger. Fast forward to decades later, I do it with people.
Yeah.
Not because I'm trying to break them, but because I'm trying to understand what is the inherent characteristic that is allowing that crack to not just initiate, but propagate. And how can I help maybe arrest it or make it be a different way? In the middle, I had a stint of global recruiting for the chemical industry, and my performance was always stellar. And I thought my relationships were something that were just going to always be there. And I thought my health was something I always had time to do. It was that important, but not urgent, right? And so I was in this delusion, and I thought I was doing what I needed to be doing, and I kept wanting to win and win and win. And I had so many external things saying I was, in fact, winning, and I kept getting these awards. And as soon as I got one, I'm chasing the next one, or earning vacations. And for top performing, you get to go to cool places, and then you realize, well, they scheduled that trip in February. And the kids can't go to school. So now I'm going to vacation on my own. And how does that make any sense? Like I've just now uprooted my husband's life to do things that we do as a partnership. What? And then, And so but I had to experience that to know. Some things I can read and I can learn, and there's knowledge and there's knowing. And the knowing is the actual experiencing and the actual kind of realizing, like, wait, none of this matters. If I am, having health challenges I didn't even realize were connected, and not showing up how I really, truly want to be for the people that I say I love the most, and they're getting the worst of me because my work got the best, and then I'm exhausted.
It's powerful, Carolyn, for you to have that realization, and then obviously be able to help others. I talk about this quite a bit with entrepreneurs now, this integration of family and business. It's not that lowering our obsession with business is the answer. I think that for crazy people like you and I, this is how we're made. This is how we're fueled. Great. So just the answer is actually to increase our obsession with our family or with our kids or with our health, right? And so I think once I understood, or I've even said this to other entrepreneurs, we've said well, I'm building this for you. And it's like, well, wait a second, let's break that down, because you say you're building it for them, but you never get to see them. You're living a different life than them. And a lot of entrepreneurs don't slow down enough to think about that. It doesn't mean that they need to press less on the business or give up their dream or, trade. Okay, well, I'll make a little bit less money so that I can be more present with my family. I don't think that's the case at all. I think that the intentionality of how you spend the time with the family or on your health or whatever is what needs to increase. And I think you can have it all. If you're super intentional, you can for sure have it all.
Absolutely. Now, for you, I know you also ended up the franchises led to other things, led to working in cool places, moving your family. I think there was a stint in corporate there, all of this stuff. And what was it that helped open your eyes, change your perspective? For me, it was my husband after our 20th wedding anniversary. He is together we're a whole person. It's amazing. But he's generally non-confrontational. Sure. Kind of very easy, go with the flow, whatever you need to do, I'm here to help kind of guy. And he said, right around our 20th anniversary, he said, I am terrified we are not going to have another anniversary. And I'm thinking oh man, did I do? And he said, because you're literally killing yourself.
Yeah.
And I know who you are. The kids, I don't think that they're seeing who you actually are.
Yeah.
And so I don't care what you do. I'll support you 100%. Figure it out. I don't think what you're doing is it.
Yeah.
And so it was almost like when somebody asks you, are you okay? And you're not okay, right? But you're trying to front like you're fine, But for you, how did that realization come that yes, you were and are amazingly successful, and yet you still wanted more in those other areas of life too?
I'm going to tell you the situation that was the moment. I didn't realize it in the moment, believe it or not. And you're going to be like, how are you that blind? But the situation was, my wife had family photos scheduled and she did them without me. And I remember when she did them, I was just like, oh yeah, no big deal. Like I couldn't be there. It was just like, oh, I just can't be there, And it wasn't really a big deal to her at that time. It wasn't like, well, I'm pissed. It wasn't like that. The circumstances of our life, we moved to Miami to take advantage of a pretty unique opportunity with some pretty big names, and for all intents and purposes, it didn't work out. So we were there for about a year. My other companies were still existing at that time, and so there was, in one of my businesses, there was just some movements that kind of were unforeseen, and I needed to physically go there. I had, not needed to be there for years. I was managing the business from remote, like up above, management, but I had not physically needed to be there in at least 2 or 3 years. And the circumstances were where I needed to go there. And so, it's not like she didn't understand that. She completely and agreed. But she wasn't going to let that slow down. I'm capturing family photos of our family like I do every year. And so she wasn't angry about it. It wasn't a big deal to me. It wasn't a big deal to her. And that's probably why in the moment it just like, no big deal. Like I can't be there. So it's not like we're in a fight about it. But it was a few years later, and I use it in my presentation now to talk about my story, but I'm just like, what? She did what? You allowed what? And when you say that, that your wife did family photos, and then I show the picture of my wife and 3 kids at the time. My third is just a baby, and it's like, unbelievable, dude. What were you doing? So looking back is the moment of like, that's exactly when, but I didn't even realize it in the moment. It was a few, maybe a year and a half-ish later where I was just like, oh, dang, I dropped the ball on that. Shortly before that, before we even moved to Miami, I almost missed the birth of my second child. And there was some miscommunication in that. Like, I didn't realize how far along she was. She wasn't, super. She was doing the like, hey, I want you to come home type of thing. But I'm like, well, where are you in the process? Because I still got work to do. And unfortunately, I should have just, oh, you're in labor. Let me come. Right. Like, that's just not, unfortunately, the decision that I made. And so I'm not peeling myself from the office. I get there, baby's born maybe 45 minutes later. She labored on her own. And still today, that's like a thing, like she's forgiven me, of course, but it's like, that's a little bit of a sticky time. We're just like, dang, what was so important to me? It's a reframe of what's important, priorities.
Yeah, but you did what you could. Like, there was a time my husband, the kids had swim lessons. Okay, because I'm like, they're little and they don't sit still, and so therefore, and we have a pool in our neighborhood, we should learn to do swim lessons. And I didn't feel like they were candidates for group lessons, and they had individual lessons, right? And God bless this beautiful entrepreneur who said, regardless if you come or not, you're paying me and it makes sense, right? And so kids are having swim lessons, and my husband's like, something's a little interesting with my heart. I think I'm going to go get it checked out. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And I took the kids to swim lessons. What the heck? Right?
Yep.
My father-in-law went, right? And a few years later, I ended up having an irregular heart rate. And my husband, of course, he came with me right away. And then he said, while I'm sitting there, he said, yeah, I had to do this on my own. And I was like, oh.
Yep.
And I'm thinking, like, I don't even know what it was. It was not much money. But at the time, it seemed like a lot of money for this swim.
Right.
And I'm like,
we paid for them. We got to go.
And
sunk costs, Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, but like, regardless, we really are. I do inherently believe we really are trying to do the best we can in the circumstances when we make a decision. Could we now later can we judge and we realize, oh man, that really wasn't my best, but at the time I thought it was, and I'm sure at the time you thought it was. And those second kids come a little bit differently than
they do.
First.
They come a little faster.
They're kind of like the system's a little bit
that's right.
differently. So, how are you supposed to know? Okay. I'm curious. I don't want to like overstep, but like when you say that the Miami cool venture didn't work out, were there like it didn't work out, like were you feeling some sort of way in your body to realize that this wasn't necessarily aligned? Like if there's performance, relationships, and well-being, like was there a root?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, I've talked about this in other areas, and most people know just because it was a pretty big agency. But Frank Kern, Grant Cardone come together in 2019 and build an ad agency. Basically, behind the scenes, me and one other guy are running the business. I mean, we have a whole team. Like, I mean, it was a giant business, but me and this other guy built the sales side and the ops side. And so it was working until their relationship really they just saw things differently. They're completely two different kind of styles, and they decided to go two different ways. And I knew at that moment, with Frank gone, that it wasn't going to be what it could be, at least for me. Like I was a little bit of a unique story in that mix because I owned multiple other businesses. I was not there, again, kind of like that hustle sales call center environment is, I want a 23-year-old dude who's willing to work his nuts off for 150 grand, and it's great for him. It's great for me. It works out. But I wasn't that guy.
Yep.
I wasn't 23. I
Yep.
was a family guy. I owned multiple businesses. 150 grand was like, I don't even know how you live on that. Like it was so far behind in my history. And I was there for much, much bigger opportunity, which is all fine and dandy until I realized that it probably wasn't going to be. And I wasn't there as a fanboy. I mean, I love Grant. I disagree on several things, but I loved his energy. A lot of his books are unlocked a lot of the way I think. So I pay homage there, from like I really respect what he's done, but I wasn't there to like just work for Grant and just say like, look at me, I work for Grant Cardone. So in that moment, yes, there was obviously a deep gut wrenching feeling in my body of like, nope, this is not right. And I remember going in and chatting with the team and be like, hey guys, like it's just not going to work out. And we left. So no problem.
How old were you?
Yeah, I'm 32. 30?
Yes. See, you're hitting another one. You hit it's so fascinating, right? I didn't realize that things happen at predictable stages, right? Generally. And so that 31, 32 age is another one of those transition points where you naturally, through growing and evolving, are starting to question, is this really it? Is this really what I'm wanting to do? And here we are once again. Like, I'm pretty sure if we could like overlay,
Sure.
You're hitting every single one
That's
of them,
awesome.
paying attention and allowing that to, make a course correction of where you're spending your time, effort, and energy.
Oh, yeah.
This is so fascinating.
Yeah, I love it. That's great.
All right, thank you for elucidating that a little bit for me because I'm always curious. Nerd. I'm totally a data nerd.
Somebody's got to love it.
I love it. And it's just one part of the foundation, right? It's like, and what do you do afterward? And what about the person? And what about the family? And what about the impact? Like, these are the
That's
things.
right.
Okay. So then you move back to the Kansas City area. You continue to open new businesses and things.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not done. Grateful, but not done, right? And so in 2020, when we got back, it was right around COVID, I launched a sales training business. I mean, I've trained thousands of salespeople at this time. My wife is like, hey, I know you've been a business owner, but like, is this time for you to be, this is like the time for you to do you. Like, what does Chaz really want to do? And sales training wasn't what I really wanted to do, but I knew that I could start a business with that skill because I could train, just put somebody in front of me, we'll talk sales process and I will add massive value. And so that's what I started doing. I started doing that in, one-on-one settings, started working with teams, entrepreneurs, individual salespeople. I built a course, all kinds of fun stuff that I knew wouldn't be forever. Like I didn't want to be the next Grant Cardone. I wasn't trying to be the next Grant Cardone, but I knew that I had developed some skills and a way of thinking because even when I was in corporate training sales, I was the only sales manager that had my own training process, like literally broken down step by step. I was training my people and they asked me to come in and train new people. Like it's just kind of how my brain worked and it worked. And so like, I just carried that with me and productized all that. And it got me rolling. As I started to work with more and more business owners, I started to realize that, okay, so the need here isn't just sales. They've got need with their marketing. They got need with their operations. They got need with, hiring people. And so my first kind of go-to with that wasn't like just to offer other services. It was, okay, my favorite book is Think and Grow Rich. Chapter 10 breaks down the mastermind principle. I've been in a lot of group coaching sessions, but nobody's doing like this actual mastermind that Napoleon Hill talks about in chapter 10. Why don't I bring some of these clients together in a format to where we're talking about this problem, this solution, that solution, and we can all help each other. And so then therefore Gathering the Kings was born. It wasn't that Chaz's inner circle, come listen to Chaz and he can solve all your problems. It was, how can I gather the kings and the queens of different industries and sit them at the same table and I can facilitate it, but it doesn't have to be just about me because that guy over there might even have a bigger business than me. And that gal over there has been in business a whole lot longer than me. And we've all experienced different things because we got different businesses and different industries and different, history. And believe it or not, we can actually unlock a lot of things for each other. And if I can facilitate a real mastermind like Napoleon Hill talks about, there's got to be major value in that. So we launched in 2022 with 7 people And we was like, okay, here's what it's going to be. I can't promise. I don't know exactly what the result's going to be for you, but I can tell you exactly how I'm going to facilitate, and we're going to make it look like chapter 10 in Think and Grow Rich. And these 7 guys were like, all right, let's go.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And now that's continued to evolve. And then from that has come, the podcast came from that, and then your monthly get-togethers, and then that led to in-person things, and then that expanded to family offerings. And so
yeah, it's got this incredible life journey of its own, right? And most businesses do, right? They've got, they're cyclical, like they go through life just like we do. And so Gathering the Kings now is in its 4th year of life. And so we're past the dip, the point where you at the 3-year mark and you decide whether you take it out back and kill it or not. We're past that mark. We're all in. We're going to impact, families, entrepreneur families specifically, for the long haul. And how we do that might change over the course of time, of course, just like most businesses pivot and change and grow. But as of right now, we get to do that in, helping the entrepreneur unlock how the business machine works so that it doesn't own them like it used to own me, so that they have a business and not a job, so that they can spend some time with their family or their health or, helping their community or serving in their church or whatever. And ultimately, it leaves a legacy. We want to think in the next 100 years. How do I control the next 100 years? Well, I can't do that if I'm owned by my business or my job.
I love that. 2 more questions. 1, how do people find you?
Yeah, gatheringthekings.com. All the stuff that we talk about inside the community, peer-to-peer mastermind, the family vacation that we do each summer is all there. So gatheringthekings.com.
Awesome. And secondly, how do you define authentic success for you in this moment?
Yeah, I appreciate your perspective, on this. Success is whatever is in the eye of the beholder, as I say, right? For me, I want to win in all areas. I want to have multiple businesses that are thriving and profitable and serving our team and our clients and our communities. I want to have a family that is rooted in love and faith and strength and commitment. I want to have children that are resourceful and resilient and competitive and ambitious. I want to have a marriage that is going to last and have people talk about it, about how we loved each other so well. I want to have optimal health. I want to be in the best version of me. I want to be in the best fitness version, the best mental version of me. And of course, I want my faith to just be unbreakable. There's going to be times where I still, wrestle through things, but I think that that's part of it. That's what King David did constantly. And so it's not about being perfect. It's about wrestling through and having just unshakable faith.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so very much for sharing your wisdom, sharing your nuggets, sharing this tiny glimpse even more of your story. I definitely appreciate it.
Yeah, Carolyn, thank you so much for having me here. If you're still listening, give Carolyn a 5-star review. Moving the things to get people like me on the show is a big deal. So we appreciate your support. Give Carolyn some love.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Chaz, thank you for going beyond and letting us see the story underneath your success. You gave us a powerful picture of what it looks like to be grateful but not done, ambitious and rooted. For those listening, where are you feeling that tug, that sense that something needs to change? Where are you being invited to look honestly at your work, your family, your health, and your faith, and decide what winning in all areas actually means for you? Thanks for listening to Your Next Success with Dr. Carolyn Sangal. Remember, authentic success is yours to define and includes aligning your career to support the life you want.